Hi everybody, welcome to our meeting with Bailey Wright, our Sunderland Football Club first team member. Bailey's going to talk about his job role in terms of his football career, but also how he ended up in a position, how he ended up in Sunderland, but also even prior to that about his school life, his education life, and his pathway to his dream career. Bailey, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Thank you very much for joining us. So just to start, in terms of the learners we have, obviously it's going to be primary, secondary, and our youth work. Could we have a quick description of your job role? So what's the purpose and what's the general working week look like for you?
Yeah, I am in the privileged position of being a professional footballer, something I'm really proud of and absolutely love doing. I'm a professional footballer, obviously, at Sunderland Football Club. My first full season at the club, which I've, absolutely loved. And I guess my journey to get here, obviously you can probably tell by my accent, I'm not from England, I'm from Australia. I'm a long way from home, but proud of where my journey's brought me. So obviously my education and schooling was very much, all in Australia. I left when I was 16. So, which meant leaving school early, and I actually continued my education with my first English club, which was Preston North End, which as part of my scholarship program, we studied. We went to full day of school every Thursday and Friday afternoon. So something I'm still doing now. Actually, still educating myself and still focused on.
Yeah, we'll touch on that in a few questions time. But in terms of your general working week, I can imagine your role isn't a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. What does your general working week look like?
No, it's not. If it was, I'd be absolutely knackered. I actually have had that before under a manager, which was, it was interesting. But no, my usual week, I guess, we probably get. It changes a lot. We have that many games at the moment. Your week's very much based around your games. You play every Saturday and Tuesday. But I guess, most mornings, your report time might vary, but you'd start the day off with, a couple of team meetings or small individual or group meetings, given the COVID protocols and everything that we have to follow. Opportunity to do some gym work and some pre-activation before training, which is very much one-to-one or whatever you want to do yourself to get yourself ready to train. And then, warm up as a team out to train for, however long the manager wants to train for and what he wants to focus on. Some days it's physical, some days technical, some days, a lot of the time it's tactic work as well. And, developing our game plan. And, then after that, it's, into, well, I guess we've got great facilities and, on best case scenario with, with conditions without COVID, we've got the gym and swimming pools and everything to recover and, see the physios and get any work that you need to get from the medical department. So, most days you're sort of, everyone's individual, and some lads like to stay longer and do more after training. Some like to get in early and do a bit more before training, each to their own. But I guess your average day finishes quite early and you have a lot of spare time in the afternoon. But, a lot of people do use that wisely, and a lot of the time you need to, relax and recover, because that's equally as important in the life of a professional footballer.
Yeah, we'll touch on that as well, about spent your own free time, because I know you're continuing your education. Speaking of education, how did you find school in general? So, especially secondary years, how did you adapt your education? Especially talking about the balance between sport, getting the balance between sport and education correct. How do you find education? What was your attitude to education?
So, if I roll the clock back to high school education in Australia, I was good in school. I was pretty good at most subjects, but I'll be honest, I probably didn't focus enough on school.
Yeah.
Looking back now, like I wish I had have done. And hindsight's a wonderful thing that you could just tell yourself you should have done this better. At the time, I guess I kind of knew I wanted to be a footballer, but realistically, did I think it was achievable? I mean, I've achieved it, but at the time I knew it was going to be difficult. There was no denying that. And you know, my old man comes from a background in drainage and construction, and he runs his own business in Australia, a very successful business. And you know, I always wanted to be like my old man, and I wanted to go down the family route and work for him. And that was sort of going to be my other option if football didn't work out, that I'd work hard for my dad. And you know, I enjoyed working with my dad. I'd used to go to work with him on, you know, when I had days off school, for example, on holidays or on weekends. I'd work with my old man to earn a bit of pocket money. So from a young age, that was what I always knew. And I liked the trade industry. I liked the physical work. So school, I was good in school, but I left at quite an early age. Now I know I've gone on and I'm thankful that I've made a career out of football, but I know football doesn't last forever. Although I wish it did, and I hope I've got many years of playing left in me, that's for sure. I know that there's a long life after playing professionally that I want to make sure I enjoy and do something that I love and am ready for it. And that involves education and qualifications and putting in some hard graft and learning something new, throwing myself out my comfort zone. And I guess with football, you know, you are thrown out your comfort zone a lot. You're in an environment that's competitive. I traveled halfway across the world, well, over the other side of the world to do what I do. And, you know, I had to balance, and I still am balancing football with education. And it's not an issue at all. They don't affect each other at all. You know, for me, it's always been family life first. And that's, you know, always been how I am. And obviously football second, education third. But that's only now because, you know, I've made a career out of football. Probably would have been family first, education second, football third. So it depends how you look at that. But I think, you know, there's something addictive to learning something new and developing your brain and feeling like you have that knowledge. It's a good feeling to have. And I think when you start to do more of it, you get a bit of a taste and you think, oh, the brain's a wonderful thing. What you can teach it and absorb it just by putting a little bit of time and effort in feels good. It makes you feel good about yourself. Feel good when you want to speak about something or talk to someone about something that you're more knowledgeable on. And I think balancing it with playing football is good. It's good to have interests other than just playing. It's good to develop yourself. I think the beauty of education is, right, I wish I'd have done a bit more in school when I was younger, but you're never, ever too old to keep developing yourself. Doesn't matter how old you are, what you're doing. You can always make yourself better, learn something new. And that's the beauty of education. You know, it's accessible and it's addictive learning. And, you know, it's good to find your passion because, like I said, football is a short career. And I'm sort of one of those people that likes to stay busy. And I know when my playing career is done, I want to transition into whatever's my next career and make sure you know, I've got the tools in my belt to be able to crack on and hit it head on.
Yeah, and I think that's important to showcase that education doesn't stop at school. It just keeps going throughout life, and probably the only difference is you start selecting what you want to do a little bit more in your interests. Just taking it back a little bit, you mentioned that obviously your dad's got a nice company in Australia. In terms of, do you think that provided comfort for you to focus on your football because you kind of had something to fall back on? Do you think that gave you more confidence to go, I'm going to give this my best shot, and took away some kind of fear and anxieties of I've got to make it because I've got something to fall back on here? Do you think that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I do think that. I enjoyed working with my dad, and in many respects, it was, you know, an opportunity to earn money and work. And, you know, when you're young and you've not had a job before and you've got the opportunity to start earning money, you're just like, oh, this is brilliant. You know, we're all guilty of that for sure.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously, you know, my dad's had the business for a long time and would have been great to work from him. It's still something I would consider doing. You know what I mean? It's not, I'd never rule it out. It's hard yakka, hard on the body, but I enjoyed it. And it kind of, I guess, gave me a little bit of a comfort knowing that if football didn't work out, I could work for my dad. But there's two ways you can look at it. No matter what I did, I'm a competitive person and want to do it to the best of my abilities. So, you know, if that's football and that's what I want to do, I'll do it to the best of my abilities. If I was working for my dad, I'd do it as best as I could and work hard and then relax. And I guess I mean, I was in a privileged position to have that. Some people don't have that. And I'm fully aware of knowing that I probably could have worked for him. Although, if I didn't work hard for him, my dad wouldn't have given me any leeway because I was his son.
Yeah.
I know that for sure. He used to work me hard. So although, there wasn't privileges, I guess in the back of my mind, I knew. But it kind of also made me go, I better work hard to be a footballer, because I'm going to have a knackered body when I get older, lifting concrete and sandbags. And my dad's a big old unit. He can throw some weight about, given what he's done for a living for so long. And he used to always say, if you don't work hard in football and it doesn't work out, you'll be in this pit making sandbags for me again. So it went both ways, really.
Yeah. And it sounds like a massive motivation, to be fair. It played in your hands perfect that I could end up here, but I want to give football a go. And even in the sense of what you were saying there, I think for the people listening, we can classify that as work experience, especially at a young age. So think about outside of the money. Yeah, the money was nice and getting paid young, but I think the skills and qualities that you learned from that were valuable. Working with different people and getting up and being organised and making sure you're up bright and early, you're ready for work. You could class that as work experience. And the people that are listening to this, if there's ever an opportunity to volunteer, or whether that is a family friend or a parent or a guardian or whatever, I would highly, highly, from that story, advocate going on work experience because of the skills you've learned. I think that set the tone for your life moving forward.
Yeah, and I think, when you get that experience, you learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah. You
learn a lot about, what the person is you're working for, as what they've put in to create what they've created, and what it takes, to be successful. It takes, you have to be reliable. So you want someone to rely on you. Now's your opportunity to learn and see, what it actually takes and what people do to be successful. And, it's not easy. But you got to put yourself out there. You got to put yourself out your comfort zone. You face your fears. We all have our anxieties sometimes with something new and something we've not done before. But the only way you can conquer them is just going head on in, and you soon realize, like, it wasn't as bad or as uncomfortable as what I was expecting, and you just grow and grow and grow. And that's why, I agree, it's so important to put yourself out there, get some experience, because you're putting yourself in the shop window for opportunities. And sometimes the first time someone sees you and the first impression they have on you can be lasting. Sometimes you get a second, third chance, sometimes you don't. But it's about making sure you're ready.
Yeah, 100% agree. And the earliest people put that out there, they're at the forefront of everybody else. And I think something that I always try and get across to the young people that I work with is that everybody starts at the same level when they've left school. So what sets you apart? Is that work experience? Is that just putting yourself out there? And everybody's scared. Everybody's nervous because the skills you've learned and the qualities you've learned so is everybody else in the school system, because the school system is very similar everywhere. So getting out there and experiencing, having different life experiences is really important, which you've showcased. In terms of, you left school, sorry, so did you come to England at 16?
Yeah, so I actually left school at 16. So before I moved to the UK, I'd actually left school and been working with my dad for must have been about 8 months. So to be honest, I actually fell a little bit behind in school when I was 15. Football kind of took the front seat, and I lived, I had a good upbringing, and where I lived was at the time, it's quite difficult to get to football training, and, a big demand on my parents to get me there. We relied on friends, family, grandparents to pick me up from school, take me to the train station. I'd get the train to the city, to Melbourne, train and get the train home, and someone would pick me up from the train station. And I was doing that from quite a young age. Some days I'd get, my parents would drive me all the way there, or someone would drive me there. But where I lived, I was quite far from everything, and it was a bit difficult, to be in these select teams, to give myself the best chance of being a footballer. So with that come, I finished school every day at lunchtime, and my school were brilliant. They made it a sort of an exception because I was playing for representative teams, and they sort of said, we'd love to support you. They put me in a different sort of schooling program. And before you knew it, I got a bit lazy with my schoolwork. That's the honest truth.
Yeah.
Bit lazy, fell a little bit behind, and had those discussions with the school saying, like, look, to have to pull your finger out, or we're going to have to change something. So I got up to speed with my work. You know, I passed everything, probably slightly lower than some other people. My standard of work wasn't what it should have been, because of, you know, I was making sacrifices. There's no denying that. It was difficult. Late nights, long journeys every day after school. Probably harder on my parents than it was on me. But, you know, I'm thankful for the support everyone give us to achieve that. So I ended up leaving school not long after that because I'd, you know, sort of fallen behind. And it was an opportunity to sort of take up an apprenticeship. But because I knew I was moving to England and starting my education there, it was sort of like an 8-month window. Well, I didn't know there was guarantees to go to England, to be honest. But, you know, if I hadn't done, that's what I was going to do, work for my dad. So, yeah, I moved to England when I was 16.
The one thing I just want to pinpoint from that was, and share with the listeners was, nobody's successful by themselves. So it's clear to see, as you said, like grandparents, your friends, your family friends, your mum and dad, they supported you massively through, because you obviously couldn't have drove to the train station and such and sort the tickets and things out with you being underage and things. So that's a great reference in terms of there's so many people on the path to success. So always treat people well, and be grateful and thankful, and a positive mentality will take you a long way. So that was great. How did you find, I know I'm going off script a little bit, but I'm just interested in terms of moving to a whole different country at 16 years old. How did you find that?
I loved it. I didn't feel 16. But I guess all I had in the back of my head was I'm moving to England. Like the dream for me was to come to England. I loved everything about England, people, football, like the country, not the cold, everything else but the cold.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to be here. And then I was like, you know, got the opportunity. I'm playing football for a living, for a professional club. And every day it's just wake up and be like, maximize your opportunity. Didn't like actually say it to myself, but every day, every time I trained, I was like, you've got the opportunity. Make sure every day is going to benefit you. Don't waste the day. And that's kind of the attitude I always had with football. Whether I knew it at the time, that was just my natural instinct with how I trained. And I moved over to the UK, and you know, two people that I like to call my English parents, Mick and Joan McCallion, and they were the couple that ran our digs, and 19 of us lived in these digs, and it was brilliant, mate. Honestly, you were all playing football every day, getting fed, house was clean. You had your guidelines and your rules you had to follow, wash your dishes, keep your room tidy, etc., etc. So it taught you little life disciplines that I guess you should learn at home too, but you know, some people, their parents do all that for them. And we were lucky that we got, you know, our cooking and food provided. We just had to, you know, sort our transport to training every day. And it was brilliant. I remember actually walking in the house. I didn't know anyone, moved over from Australia, and I walked in and everyone was already in the house before me. Everyone had shotgun their bedrooms and beds and whatnot. And they're like, oh, you've got the bunk bedroom. And I've just flown over from Australia thinking, surely I'll get an all right room. And I walked in and I had to open the door, step in, close the door, and there was a bunk bed there, chest of drawers. Two of us had to live in this room. I remember thinking, this is going to be difficult. And I just loved it. It was brilliant, mate. Just like playing football, being with everyone. And it made it, you know, a bit more homely. Mick and Joan were brilliant. The lads were brilliant. The club made me welcome, to the point where everyone always says, how did you deal with homesickness? Now, I miss family and friends. There's no doubt about that. But I was absorbed in playing football and living my dream.
Yeah.
And it kind of like, in a selfish way, that was my focus, and it helped me get through it all for sure. There's times when you feel a long way away from your family. I've been here 12 years now, so you build up that resilience. But I had a network around me, like you said before. It's good to have people around you that help you on the journey. And I had a good network around me again, moving to the club, and you know, it's like my home away from home, which, you know, made it pretty special.
Yeah, it sounds great, and it sounds like you were motivated by the opportunity. So you understood that this is an opportunity that not many people get, especially from moving to the other side of the world. And you had that opportunity to go and be a success. So it sounded like you were fully focused on that, and that's great to hear, because obviously it worked really well. And and you got to where you wanted to be, and the dream became the reality. So, no, well done. In terms of when you were growing up, and even to now, to be fair, who would you class as influences and motivations for you? So, who were you influenced by throughout your life?
So people I actually knew, or people that were in positions that I wanted to be in?
Both. Let's go personal first. So, who you knew?
Yeah. So there's been a lot of people, I guess, along my personal journey that have helped me. None more so than my immediate family. I wouldn't have ever had the opportunity if it wasn't for them. Brothers, sisters, my mum and dad. I come from a family of 5 brothers and sisters. I've got a twin sister who we all get along with like incredibly well, and I'm fortunate. They've always, been my biggest supporters. Really, every time I go back to Australia and play for Australia, wherever it might be, they're on a flight. They're there to come and see us, support us. It's been like that my whole career. So it all starts there, really. People like Mick and Joan that I mentioned when I moved to England. People at Preston North End. I've met some great people at that club, and the person that gave me the opportunity to sign at that club, Jamie Hoyland, has been a big influence on me. He was our youth team manager, kind of like a mentor in many ways, that believed in me when maybe I was at a stage in my career where people in Australia stopped believing in me in a football aspect. But I come to England and this guy believed in me, give me a chance, and I didn't want to disappoint him. So he was a big part of my journey. And my wife now, obviously, when we first met, we've been together a long time now. I think it's about 10, 11 years. She'll have to, if I'm wrong there, she'll kill me about that. So we've been married, nearly 2 years, and she's incredible, and made life here really enjoyable. So, there's people like that come along. And obviously we spent a long time together, and when we're growing our family, due to have a baby in May. So, which is incredible. Thank you. So yeah, there's been, from a family point of view, some great influences. Football point of view, I've had some great coaches, some good managers, mentors, and I could name so many that have all had impacts on me. I couldn't single out one person. I'd say there's been a few that not so much, for sure, but that's like anything in life. You don't get along with everyone, and sometimes some people don't have the impact on you that that you expect. But I've had a lot of people that have been great supporters, and great support for me to learn and grow and develop as a player and as a human.
Yeah, and I think the key word you constantly mentioning there was the mentors. And if I could advocate anything to the young people listening now, would be get yourself a mentor, even if it's an unofficial one. A mentor could be anybody in terms of a teacher, a parent, a guardian, a grandparent, an uncle, a cousin, whatever. As long as somebody's there to just guide you, because I think lack of experience can sometimes relate to lack of motivation. So because I don't know how to do it, I'm not going to do it. Which, find someone that has done it before and then just ask them like as you're going through the journey. I think that's really important and something that you've identified as well.
Yeah.
Do you have any mentors that you've had since you were young outside of the family, in terms of like your first coach, for example? Do you still drop them a message every now and then, or is there anybody along them lines who's been with you from the start outside of your immediate family?
I mean, regular contact, probably not, but ever so often I touch base with a few people. Sometimes you pose a question for some advice. Sometimes they pose you a question for advice or an opinion, which is good. And some it's great to keep things, like you say, with people that have lived and breathed situations that you might be in or want to be in or want to know more about. And yeah, like I do. I have a support network of people that I bounce things off, and I have regular chats with about how they've got to where they've got to in their career. So yeah, I think it's really important to have people like that and connect. And I'll say it now, like LinkedIn, like I wish I knew about LinkedIn earlier. Sounds a little bit busy, and I'll probably annoy some people on it, and but sometimes some of the people you network with and have conversations with, you'd be surprised by the people sometimes willing to give you the time of day just so you can pick their brains. And that's a good platform for that. I guess you could say it's social media, but you actually read interesting stuff on there that, like I said before, actually teaches you, and like you feel like you gain a bit of knowledge from a lot of it. So I'd recommend that for many people. Not sure what age group maybe you should start at, but there's a great variety of people and variety of professions in there you can connect with. And sometimes it doesn't have to be someone go and learn off someone you don't, and leave an impression, because you never know what might become of it.
Yeah, 100%. And I echo everything you've just said there. In terms of myself, I always remember when I was younger, when I was in year 10 and 11, and I always used to try and learn confidence. I was like, how are people naturally confident? I took that from sport. So like football, and you always used to have your boxers that I used to watch, like Floyd Mayweather's and things. I used to just try and watch them in interviews and be like, that's how you talk, to seem confident. And then it came across as I naturally got that. So I always try and say, like, find someone, even if you've got nobody close to you, find someone that you see and perceive as confident, and try and behave positively in them kinds of ways, and it kind of comes to you naturally.
It's like there's a TED talk like that, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And it's like, you might be faking it. And like anyone, when you're learning to do something, you have trial and error, pretend, act, until it becomes instilled in you and you become what you want to become. Yeah. And you've done it. It's no longer faking it. So that's a good little TED talk.
Yeah. Keep an eye out for the listeners to that one. It was very similar to when I first started teaching. I didn't know how to teach. It was my first lesson. So then I just used to practice in front of the mirror, pretending I was talking to a class of people. And then on the next day, I'd actually be doing it. And after a couple of months, it just became natural and just taught. It's really important. That's really great advice. In terms of any barriers, I know obviously one would be the changing of countries and things at a young age. But what barriers have you overcome in your professional life, and how did you overcome that?
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
I've got you back. Just frozen on me.
That's okay. So in terms of barriers you face in your professional life, what's one that stands out, and how did you overcome that?
I guess, as a professional footballer, one of the biggest barriers you face are injuries and setbacks, which we all experience in some sort of degree. Some bad injuries, some short-term injuries, accumulation sometimes. And for me, I guess one of the tough times I had a spell at my previous club at Bristol City where one thing led to another, and I was just trying so hard to get fit. I just couldn't. I'd get fit and then I'd get a reoccurring injury, back to the drawing board, get fit again. And then you might get another reoccurring injury. And, sometimes they weren't necessarily bad injuries, but they just took longer than I expected and longer than I set myself. I always like to think that, with determination and, commitment to following programs and doing the right things, eating well, sleeping well, training well, all those percentages, you can get things right psychologically, mentally, physically, to try to get back fit. And you have those setbacks, and then what comes with them is someone takes your place. Someone has to play your position. Someone has to take your space. And the problem is, many times they do it well. This is the football industry. It moves quickly. If you have a spell out of the team, someone takes that opportunity. And, in many ways, that's how you get your chance when someone else is injured. With, sometimes as a young lad, you make your debut through injuries. And that's how you get your foot in the door. And, I had that spell at Bristol City where over a year and a half period of 2 years where I went through a lot of things where I missed out, not through injury, just missed out through selection for the World Cup to Russia. I was part of the 4-year journey to qualify for that, played a lot of games, which I still feel a lot of satisfaction and pride from qualifying for that World Cup. I was very much part of that, but nothing's guaranteed. And, I didn't get the opportunity to go to the World Cup, and still, it took me a while to get over looking back, it hit me hard. And then I had a lot of injuries, where they're related. Sometimes I always think to myself, did they have a mental effect on me? Probably, maybe me would say no. But who knows is the honest answer to that. But I did have genuine injuries. So I had, quad injuries, Achilles, knees, back, everything just kept happening to the point where you look at everything. You change your orthotics in your shoes. You start sleeping different. You start changing what you eat. You do different exercises. I was doing upside down yoga. I was hanging on swings, stretching my back out. I was doing yoga regularly. All these little things were beneficial. And yoga was brilliant. They were all brilliant. And then I've done everything, ticked all the boxes, back to train. A couple of days in, something else happens, and you're just like, put so much work and effort. And you can see sometimes people going, nah, they're injury prone. Nah, they're not doing something right. But you're like, what am I not doing right? And sometimes you can just overthink things. Just relax. If you're injured, you're injured. Like, looking back on it, I know that sounds stupid because, you don't want to let yourself get injured, but you're injured. Your body's telling you something that you need to get this sorted. It's, being an athlete is a big physical demand, physically and mentally. And I think your mental well-being is really important and often overlooked. And these barriers, more often than not, the biggest barrier you face is the mental barrier. The physical, is only a small part of it. I think if you can get the mental side right, the rest of it looks after itself. And these barriers, I guess, you can look at them as little failures and setbacks and disappointments, but success, you don't get success without all these barriers and all these failures. They are painful, but success, when you get it, makes it worth it. And you don't get that without some difficult things to go through. Sometimes you got to reset the button, reflect and learn on what went well, what didn't, and go again. I think that's what happens when you hit barriers. And I guess as you get more experience and learn and develop as a person, you start to realize what all them little things meant. Sometimes at the time you don't realize it, but you do further down the line and realize it's worth it.
Yeah, no, brilliant advice. I think from that, just keep going. And I think one thing that people don't generally understand about, especially footballers, is that the psychological side is so important. The life of a footballer looks brilliant from the outside. When you get in, you realize that actually it's a hard life in terms of you've got to be prepared, but then you've got so many setbacks that come up, and then you've got a lot of people judging you constantly. People don't even know the story. And I guess that's a hard thing to balance in general. Because at the end of the day,
brilliant life, like it really is. I think it's brilliant because I'd say 99% are doing what they love, and that's why it's brilliant. But don't get me wrong, it comes with some challenges. Like, I think the biggest one is you want to be successful. Everyone works so hard to be successful. You want to win on a football pitch because the feeling is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. And when you don't, it's painful. And sometimes people, sometimes people can assume that sometimes someone doesn't care or isn't affected by something. But it's sometimes how some people like to display that. Some people will show you that they care, and some people care but won't show you, and that's just how they deal with it. And there is challenges. It is nonstop. You're in a competitive environment where I said before, like, you slip up one day and you could miss your opportunity and someone else takes it and that's it. It changes. So every day you're competing, but it's also that everyday competition's addictive and it's enjoyable.
Yeah. That's what got you in the first place, I would imagine, the competition. Way back when you were a child. So just talking about the psychological barrier, I think that, like we were mentioning, football's physical 100%, but it's psychological just as much. I'm keen for our listeners to understand what strategies you use to keep you focused, something that they can potentially implement in exam time, in job interview time, something that, because we all get nerves are the same emotion for everybody. It's just different about what people get nervous about. So how do you deal with like nerves and moving forward? What kind of things do you put in place prior to a match, prior to training, when you're starting to feel a bit down?
Yeah, so I'm a big advocate for visualization. And some people, I do it in the dressing room before every game. I do it at home. Sometimes when my head's on the pillow, just run through things that I do well, or people that have had significant impact on me in my career and what it means to me. And I use that as a focus and a motivator, so that whenever I'm about to do something where I know, I'm a little bit nervy, and I like to have nerves, a little bit, because I think nerves are good, because sometimes you can feel like you're on the edge of something good, and you're putting yourself out there again to go and grow. Nerves, you don't want to be too nervous, because sometimes you can be like that because you've not put in the preparation. And visualization helps that massively, because I like to call it getting in the zone, to focus on, visualization of doing things well, doing things right. What does it feel like? What do you feel like when you do them well? And who are you doing them well for? Like, who are the people that have impacted you, and how they impacted you, and what does it mean for them? So, when you go out and do something that, you've done it in your head, you've done it, you do it every day in training, but you've done these things in your head. And the beauty of it is, it doesn't require any physical exercise. You just close your eyes, visualize. We can all do it. We all sit there in a room and visualize, and our brain goes everywhere. Just control where you want it to go. Sounds easy, actually, but it's not. It takes a little bit of work and practice. A few books. I'm trying to think of the book I read on people say hypnotherapy, and they'll think, oh, like hang that and sleep. It's not that at all. It's about positive talk to yourself, seeing positive images, yourself doing positive things. And, the psychological element of all of this, some of the best athletes or highest performing athletes in the world use this. They all do it. Like Steve Smith, the cricketer, he'll just sit there in a room and just airplane cricket, no cricket bat in his hand, no ball, no nothing. He just, everywhere he walks, he just does it. And that's his, he visualizes and does it. And he's one of the best cricketers in the world. Albeit, obviously, people have their opinion on him for what happened with the ball tampering scandal and everything. But to bounce back the way he has and come back as a world-class cricketer again, there should be some proof there there is proof. There's studies that prove it. And that's sort of my preparation leading in, certainly football games, and sometimes when you're low on confidence. But, you've got to put in some practice to work on things you want to visualize. So, what does doing things well look like to you? Envision it in your head. What does it smell like? What does it feel like? What does the actions? What's your body posture? What's, all these sort of things, all related to football for me in some regard there. And they help me. And, some lads in the dressing room, I guess, when I'm in my little zone, I put my head down. And when you go to a new football club, some lads don't know what you're doing. And a lot of time before kickoff, some lads be like, oh, all the best. And you sort of ignore them. And I think boys don't know that now. They know that when I'm like that, I'm just thinking about my visualization. I'm not being rude. And, but when you first go to a new dressing room, sometimes, people might think, what's he doing there? Like he's just ignoring everyone or whatever you're doing. But that's what I do. So lads know that now.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important thing to say, because even the little things that I think a lot of people get stressed because they don't calm their mind and they don't predict what's going to happen. Something might differently totally happen, but you'll go into something confident if you have a clear mind of this is how I'm going to react to this situation, or this is how I'm going to behave. Even the little things there, like you say, and I was very similar when I was younger in terms of how you sat, how you walked, how you spoke to people, like you'd stare at them so you'd exude confidence. Even if my stomach was rumbling and I was really scared, I'd just pretend I wasn't. That job interview, I'd always make sure I'd stare in people's eyes, even if I didn't have a clue what they were talking about. And I always say to the young people, it's a game. If you learn to play the little tricks of the game, you'll start becoming good at it naturally.
It's funny. I relate this all the way back a long time ago when I was at Preston North End, and I can't even remember his name. We had a guy come in and he laid out like 10 buckets, and we all got like loads of tennis balls. And say you got, I don't know, there was 10 groups of 10 lads, whatever it was, and you've got 10 tennis balls and you have to throw them in the bucket 20 meters away or 10 meters away, and you can't know how many you get in. Everyone does it, writes down what they do. this will be a good challenge. If anyone listening to this wants to have a crack on it, it'll be interesting to see how they go. Do it again. Close your eyes. Have 10 tennis balls in your hand. So visualize it, feel it. What does the tennis ball smell like? Feel all these thoughts run through your head, and then just do it in your mind and actually physically do it, like the action without throwing the ball. Close your eyes and see every single one going in and see what it looks like, the trajectory, the weight coming out of your hand, the noise, the feeling when it goes in. And then they say do that over 10 times, 20 times. Grab another 10 tennis balls and do it and see if you improve. And majority of us all improved. There was a few that didn't. Maybe the visualization wasn't good enough, but it's a simple little tool to do. And like, it should be enough to make you have the buy-in to go, well, this actually does help.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a little secret that a lot of people aren't aware of, and it's something that when you think about it and you talk about it like we are, it comes across as very basic. That why isn't everybody doing it? But I think people are scared of stuff they don't know, and just to the listeners, just try it. So visualize passing that exam, visualize going into that job interview confident, even if you're not. Just pretend and see what happens, because there's no harm in it.
Exactly.
That's brilliant. Thanks for sharing. In terms of non-negotiable skills, what would you say are 3 non-negotiable skills or qualities that you feel needed to be a success in your career?
I don't think skills are actually a non-negotiable. I think skills you can always learn and develop and improve.
Yeah.
I think the non-negotiables are, for me, focus and committing, having full commitment to what you do. If you're fully committed to something, people know that, if you make mistakes or whatever, you're bound to make mistakes. Mistakes are part of the process. As long as you're fully committed and they're not, lazy mistakes, so call it, then I think you're fully committed and focused, then you can go and achieve. And I guess the third one is just being a good person. It's like just being nice. Do you know what I mean? It's something so easy and free to do. Like, just be helpful, be kind, have a laugh, but, just be generous. In many ways, I think something so simple yet easily overlooked. There's no reason to be a nasty person. I guess the word I'm looking for is genuine.
Yeah. And I think that for the talks I've done today, and including yours, I think that's been a common theme about treat people well and people will treat you well. So treat how you want to be treated. And that's always success in terms of a portion of success, being treated well and spoken to nicely. I like the fact also that you mentioned about skills you can learn, and I 100% agree with that, especially when it comes to employment. So if I'm on a job panel and we always look at the personality, and we always look at how people are. We can always train someone to be a teacher. We can always train someone to be a coach if that's what they're into. But if you've got a good personality and a solid grounding, you're likely to get the job, because we can develop somebody. So if you have a good personality and you're caring and you're authentic and genuine, you'll get far in life. So that's
you want to hire motivated people, because motivated people are infectious, they're fun, and will learn the skills. Of course, people who have skills are obviously motivated people because they've developed the skills. But sometimes, do they want to keep developing? Who knows? I guess the groundworks are of someone's attitude is one of the most important aspects.
Yeah, totally agree. And move on to the next one. In terms of, speaking of development, how do you continue developing on and off the pitch? Is there anything in terms of podcasts, books? Do you do anything outside of training that you make sure it would progress you, obviously, in your chosen industry, but also educationally wise and post-career?
Yeah. Again, big believer, more so now than I was in my early stage of my career, that you can always improve yourself and develop. Reading. I used to be a bit of a slow reader. The more I read, the better I've got at it, and I really enjoy it now. A list of some good books, The Winning Mindset by Damien Hughes, a who I'm sure a lot of people will be familiar with, his podcast, the High Performance Podcast, with Jake Humphrey, I think it is.
Yeah.
There's some great insights on there of people sharing their stories. And there's always lessons or something you can take from someone, even if you've not known anything about that person, and you hear their story or how they've overcome something. So much is relatable. With books as well, sometimes you can find stuff relatable and better understand things, and recommend books to other people. You see a lot of people on Instagram sharing books they're reading, which is good to see, a book club type thing. It's not something I do in terms of share books. I do actually with people if they ask, but not on social media. But some people, share some great books, and the podcasts are a great way to listen and learn on the go. I think the podcast is going to grow and grow and grow to the point where it'll be one of the main ways of learning for people. I think you can learn listening in the car, going for a run, for a walk, in the office, while you're cooking dinner, whatever. You can learn in so many ways. And on top of that, obviously, with football, always learning, and it's good to have a manager that wants to help you learn and understand the different aspects of football. And obviously I've worked with Lee Johnson at Bristol City and working with him again now, and he's very much a teaching, coaching type manager that wants to develop you and always improve you, no matter what age you are, which is enjoyable as well, because you learn about football and everything that goes into it. And I guess, I'm also studying as well, alongside playing. It's obviously not full time because I couldn't do full time, but it's a 2-year degree that I'm currently on, which is a MSc in sports directorship. I very much want to stay in sport in some sort of capacity when I do stop playing. What capacity, I don't 100% know yet. But I just want to make sure that I'm fully equipped and ready for whatever I decide to do, whether that, be coaching or, working as a sporting director, which takes a long journey to get a role like that. Even as a manager, it takes a long time to get a job like that. But I just want to make sure I was ready. And like you said earlier, what's going to make you stand out above anyone else is, putting in the groundworks to improve yourself and be ready and have that little edge over anyone else. And to do that, you've got to put in the work and groundwork. And whilst you're playing is a good opportunity because you have spare time. Often we spend hours on a coach somewhere. And sometimes, maybe it can be looked at as a distraction. Some people say that. I completely disagree. I think it's a furthest thing from a distraction. I think it's good to have an interest away from football because you can switch off from football a little bit, learn and develop yourself. And I actually think it makes you a stronger player and individual. And that's what I've taken from it. I don't find it difficult to balance the two, provided you, like I said, committed and motivated to put in the work, then it's easy. If you're not, then of course it's going to be difficult because you're going to allow things to pile up and get behind. If you're proactive, then it's easy.
Yeah, and I really push with that as well because especially the young people that we engage, I'm like, do everything you can now up until your 20s because you haven't really got any bills to pay. You haven't got a mortgage. Probably your only bill's your phone bill. You're still at home. You're getting your food cooked. You're getting your washing done. Like everything's new. So go and use your own personal time to volunteer and build as many skills as you want. So I'm a big advocate of doing as much as you can when you can because you never know how that's going to benefit you in the long run.
And the people you meet along the way.
Yeah.
Like networking and, do you know what I mean? You make a good impression on this person. In 5 years' time, you might be going for a job and that person's advertising the job. And they'll be like, oh, I remember you. You actually volunteered and made a good impression on me 5 years ago. Job's yours.
Yeah.
And I bet it'd be amazing to see how often that happens. A lot it would happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So just put yourself forward and you never know what's to come. Last question, Bailey. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. In terms of, with all the knowledge and experience you've got now, with everything you know, if you were going to advise a 16-year-old who's just about to start on their professional journey, whatever that is, whether that's continuing education or going into an apprenticeship or work, what advice would you give?
Whatever you do and you want to do your due diligence and put the preparation in. because sometimes that can be the difference. And sometimes all that might take is 10 minutes of preparing a little bit extra than someone else, or, you know, to make sure that when something comes up that you're doing it slightly better than anyone else. And all it's taken is 10 minutes. You know, that's, you know, put your phone down and don't go on a social media app, or sometimes go on a social media app, depends what industry you're going in. Because I guess that whole world is a whole new world in its own right, which is crazy, but it is. So whatever you do, just put full commitment and focus into it. Just put just a little bit extra energy and preparation and due diligence to be prepared, to, you know, be ready for, you know, if you're going in for an interview, ask yourself, what sort of questions might someone ask me, and what might I need to know that's not on this list? Because sometimes someone might throw that at you. Sometimes you might just do a little bit of research on that person to know their background, which could change a conversation and leave an impression in what you do, whether that be getting a job or getting accepted onto a course, whatever it might be. What's going to make you different? Not like, what have I got that's good now? What can I do to actually just add on that and be beneficial to give myself the best chance? And I guess that's the competitive world that we're in, that you need to make an impression, like I said. And if it's your body language, change your body language is massive, because if someone buys into your body language, they'll listen to what you say. If they don't buy into your body language, that whatever comes out your mouth, they probably won't even listen to. That's fact.
Yeah, that's brilliant advice. And I think that ties in with everything you've spoke about previously in terms of preparation is key, but that falls into visualization. So if you're preparing, you're visualizing what's going to happen. So you're preparing the questions, you're preparing how you're going to sit, how you're going to speak, how you're going to look. So no, that was really brilliant. I hope our listeners have took some value from this, because every lot of stuff that you've said, they can apply to life. It doesn't matter what job or career you're going to go into, it applies to life, and it's very motivating to hear someone like yourself in the stature you're in the employment you're in, speak very similar to it translates over any industry and any career and any pathway. So thank you very much for your time, Bailey. I genuinely appreciate it. And I hope
Daz, I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'll catch up with you soon.
Cheers, mate. Speak to you soon.